Hello and welcome to this Unicourse video. My name is Ashley and the topic of today's session is an introduction to performance management. Now this session is going to be the first in a series of sessions all relating to the topic of performance management because there is a lot to this. So we're just going to be introducing the topic today, and the main aim is for us to talk through the value of performance management within the workplace. So let's get started. We're just going to talk about some key objectives that we're going to go through today. So firstly, we're going to talk about defining what performance management is. We're going to also define development and continuous professional development and the links between as well. We're going to look at the value of performance assessment. So not performance management, but the assessment section of performance management. And then we're going to describe how and when to set SMART targets and the link to organisational goals. We'll then identify performance management tools, but we are just going to be identifying them today. We'll look at them in a little bit more detail in the following sessions to come. Okay, so basically just before we start, we need to just point out that employees are the most valuable asset or resource for an organisation, and it's a key responsibility for a leader or a manager to care for that asset, to challenge, to look after, to nurture, and to basically try and get the most out of that asset, making sure that you're giving them everything that they need to get the maximum potential out of them. And also considering that performance management is essential to all to the success basically of all organisations, no matter what industry, sector. It doesn't really matter. Having a streamlined performance management process that's suitable to the organisation's needs, so specific to the organisation's needs, will it allow for transparency. It will also allow for the opening of communication channels between all different departments and line managers as well. So just bear that in mind throughout this presentation today. So let's start by defining what development is. So the Oxford Dictionary defines it as the act or process of developing growth or progress in development or whatever area really. But management development focuses on three key areas. So you're looking at cognitive thinking development, you're looking at behavioural attitudes and values, and you're also looking at environmental situations. So when you're thinking about cognitive thinking development, you're thinking about making effective decisions, and you're thinking about generating different ideas to be able to make them decisions more efficiently and effectively really. So thinking outside the box sometimes. And then you're going to be thinking about behavioural attitudes and people's values. Not everyone has the same values, but it's choosing what's appropriate for them in relation to development opportunities maybe. So consider, ILM focus on development vehicles. That's the words that they use in relation to people having different options for development. So that could be coaching, mentoring, external night classes, by an external provider, internal, informal assessments maybe. It may be that they do an online course. It could be, there's many different ways to develop and think about the mechanisms of delivery and how you're going to get there. As I said, ILM usually use the term development vehicles, so bear that in mind. Environmental situations, you could be, and it says here appropriate management styles, so thinking about how you're going to manage that person's development and how you're going to get the best out of them really. But also thinking about the environmental situations is in relation to what environmental impact can you actually have or can influence the choice of development options as well. And that could be in relation to your organisation's resources or time or cost, and that could really have an impact on the development option that you choose. So when we're looking at defining performance management, think about, the institutes explain it really well. Achieving leaders set clear expectations, they monitor performance and give feedback. So individual outcomes contribute to team goals and the overall goals of the business too. So, that really sums it up well, I think. You're thinking about how important it is to not only point out exactly what you expect of them, but you monitor how they're getting on and if they need any support on the way there, and then you're giving them constructive feedback to be able to progress and be able to achieve not only their objectives but the team goals and the overall objectives as well. And it is an ongoing continuous process, and that's important to recognize as well, that you don't just get from A to B like within 10 minutes. It takes time, and sometimes it takes you're setting short-term objectives to be able to reach that future goal as well. So consider it's a continuous process. And when we speak about continuous process, professionals, in their fields, teachers, managers, leaders, it doesn't really matter. If you are a working professional, often is the case, your organisation will have you to keep a continuous performance, a CDP, continuous professional development plan maybe. And that's just to keep up to date with relevant skills, relevant knowledge. It might be like, for example, the NHS could be health and safety, first aid, always need to be kept up to date. In construction, you'd always have to keep all of your tickets up to date as well. But the CPD certification service say CPD is the holistic commitment of professionals towards the enhancement of personal skills and proficiency throughout their careers. So, it's usually in relation to management standards or teaching standards. It's important to keep your skills relevant and up to date. And usually to do that, you will need a CPD. And your CPD can be used as part of the performance management process within your workplace. And that is often the case with professionals in their field. So now we've touched upon defining. Let's now think about what the benefits of performance management is, and we're going to focus firstly on the individual. Now, bearing in mind that, if an organisation funds personal development, such as an online course, a distance learning course, or, a face-to-face course, then they're investing in you. They're investing in they're investing their time, their money, and they're, giving you recognition for usually what you're putting in already. So learning new skills is a big benefit for the individual, but also them skills will then enhance your prospects or readiness for promotion or progression. And that's usually one of the reasons why your employer will put you on a course, because they'll see you improving and progressing maybe through the ranks to get promoted. But it's also good to be able to refresh your new skills and maybe learn a new skill that might make your job a little bit more efficient, and or your day-to-day tasks more efficient, more effective, and maybe you might be able to complete things in a more timely manner. So think about, let me give you an example. I was assessing in an organisation, and the CEO signed up 4 different leaders onto the same ILM course. When I went in there to do induction, there was one lady who was, I don't know, maybe between 50 and 60, who was quite negative about actually being put on the course. And her thought process was, why would I need to do this course now? It's completely pointless. I don't think I need to do it. My first question to her was, do you think that you're completing your tasks and your job in the most efficient and effective way that you can? And she actually sat back and had to think, and she said, I'm not sure. And I said, well, don't you think that by completing a level 5 certificate, maybe doing just a little bit work in the next 6 months, that if you can work a little bit more effectively and more efficiently, that maybe you can agree with the CEO to, reduce your hours or finish early on a Friday, or, make some sort of negotiation if you can't see yourself working your way up through the ranks. She said, sure thing. Within 2 months and completing one unit, she was completing all of her tasks well before the time that she needed to. And her manager, or the CEO, was actually saying, well, as soon as you finish your tasks, you can go home. So for me, her work-life balance had improved. She was then happier in her role. They were then more motivated and enthused to come in, complete the tasks that were designated to them, so they can get home early to the family. And, they were happier overall. So some people, the main benefit is being able to work more efficiently, to have a better work-life balance, and also overcoming problems and finding solutions without any help from anybody else is also, it's a great benefit for yourself and your own accomplishments and and self-awareness as well. The organisational benefits are vast. In my opinion, the best, or the most significant reason for signing people up to do qualifications and develop them and to monitor their performance closely will be improved staff retention. If you're willing to invest time and effort into individuals, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go and pay for courses for them. It could just mean that you're having regular one-to-ones with them to check on how they're getting on. It could be that you put some reward and recognition, systems in place for, employee of the month, or just recognising people are doing a good job. But, it's also, enhanced efficiency and effectiveness for that individual and for that team. Also, great possibilities through application of new technologies and methods, so keeping them up to date with industry-specific enhancements for their development. Increase revenues, because think about it, if you've got a team of individuals that are upskilled, and they can work, minimizing waste, minimizing time, utilizing resources. You might be able to work better, work, cleverer, cleaner. I think about this as, when I was managing a sales team a long time ago, there was, 12 people that we were working with, and I put together a training program that I was using it on induction, and I was using for all new people, because that's as part of, I was a line manager and a training manager, and I decided to put my team on that training program because I felt like they could do better. And then I found that the benchmark target of 12 sales a month was getting hit every single month. And we had bonus structures in place for people that hit the 12 or hit 15 or hit 20. So we ended up moving that benchmark because everyone had undergone the training and could do better. So the benchmark has been moved, and not a lot of people were happy about it, but we knew that everybody could hit 15 if they undergo that training. So it's another thing that you could maybe move the benchmark of performance if you train everybody to the best of their ability as well. So, yeah, there's a vast amount of organisational benefits. I'm not going to talk about them all, but just consider it in your area of work. So let's think about, where do we start when we're looking at putting together a performance management framework or process, and how do we go about installing it if it isn't already installed, changing it if it's not working as it should be? We first start by creating a vision. Now, if you haven't watched the series on strategy, go back and have a look on the playlist, because I talk about how strategy is formulated. Let me just see if I can just give you a quick little overview here. Okay, let's say this is the organisation. Didn't mean for it to be that shape, but maybe a circular shape. You look at, when you're thinking about strategy, you look at your current state. So where are we now? And maybe, you can look at your current state by looking at doing an assessment on your current state. So for the organisation, it will be maybe looking at doing a pestle analysis to look at the external factors that can impact on the organisation. You might look at doing an internal analysis, such as a SWOT, looking at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. You can also do that for individuals as well. But thinking about it from a strategic point, you are then looking at your future state, okay? So you're thinking about, here's my current state, here's my future state. How am I going to get from my current state to the future state? And think about the future state as the vision of the organisation. So your organisation's vision. So your organisation's vision might be to enter a new market, or, you know, start working internationally or globally or something within the next 3 years. And then you've got to formulate a strategy, maybe over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, maybe. Could be 3 years, depends on how often you think about reviewing your strategic plan. But let's just say the first year, you know, you've got an operational goal or a strategic goal, or, you know, your long-term objective could be to, you know, you might have for one department to hire a new industry specialist or something. So you could go to HR, and then you've given them that goal. Then they need to consider, okay, they've got 3 people working in that department. How would these people this year go about achieving that goal? So it's looking at these people, setting them objectives, making sure that you're monitoring the objectives that are being set by whichever form of performance management process that you're going to use. That could be an appraisal, it could be a one-to-one review, it could be a supervision, it could be, you know, that you're getting some feedback from them, getting them to assess themselves. You might put together a personal development plan. You might look at reward and recognition programs, incentivizing them to achieve them objectives. But what you're wanting to basically do is to make sure that you're monitoring these people's performance in order for an objective to be met, in order for a goal to be met, in order for the 5-year goal to be achieved, in order for that vision to be found and achieved. And then maybe you might want to set yourself a new vision for the following 5 years. So just consider that awful diagram I've just put together. If you want to see it a little bit neater and more focused, go back onto the strategy video and have a look at that one, as I did that with a little bit more time and effort. But yeah, from creating that vision, you then need to think about, okay, do these people have the knowledge and skills required to succeed and work towards the objective and the goal? You also need to think, well, how can I put together some form of assessment to be able to check whether they do have the knowledge and skills required, or if they don't, how can I give them the skills and resources needed to actually be able to accomplish that? And then how am I going to monitor it? Well, maybe I might have a one-to-one formal assessment, but I might also have little catch-ups every other day just to check they're on track. And then, putting together a formal individual development plan for each individual with actionable tasks or SMART objectives is the best way to be able to focus them, always coming back to the vision, always coming back to the goal, and always letting them know what their input or the part that they play impacts on the goal being achieved. So, for example, if I was working on the marketing department and we had a goal of reaching international, if we had a goal of gaining a 10% increase in our social media presence within 3 months, then we might be tasked with a specific objective of creating and uploading content onto LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter 4 times a week to to, keep us out there and try and gain as many followers or, likes or whatever as possible. So, it's just making sure that they always link into the organisational goal or the department goal. So all organisations should design a performance management process and approach which aims to align individual objectives with departmental and strategic objectives or goals as well. So there's that link always there. Okay, so let's think of and consider Armstrong's performance management cycle. Now, for me, I think this is really, really important. It's a really important diagram to keep an eye on. It's a really, really good visual as well, and it's got some really clear points for you to be able to focus on. And even someone who hasn't read about Armstrong's book that he developed in his handbook of performance management, you can sort of already see what it's about. So performance management should be seen and identified as a continuous process of improving performance by setting individual and team goals, which are aligned to the strategic goals of the organisation. Now, we've made that point clear in our last slide, but it's also, important to consider the planning of performance to achieve the goals by reviewing and assessing progress and developing knowledge, skills, abilities, behaviours of the people that you're managing or leading. So again, the main consideration should be that project management is a continuous process. It shouldn't be an annual thing. Quality and robust performance management processes and systems should pull together a range of activities to form like the performance management cycle you can see here. Really, more often than not, organisations carry out the planning stage once a year. But nowadays, with the business environment becoming increasingly agile and fast moving, more and more organisations are considering, putting them together every 3 months, more like a short-term approach. The organisation's goals and values should feed into performance and planning as well, to ensure that individual performance aligns with the overall strategy of the organisation. Specifically, each SMART individual objective should contribute to achieve at least one or more of the organisational goals. So why is this person doing that? What are they working towards? What are they needing to accomplish? What are they wanting to achieve? And you can see in this diagram that in the cycle, there's no arrows between the stages. And this is simply because the stages don't flow one after another. Action tracks should be ongoing throughout the year. Reviews might not take place at any point, and planning may take place several times during the year and be revisited as the needs of the business change. Because we know the needs of the business change. Look at what COVID has done to our organisations. People have probably had to come straight in after COVID and re-strategise the whole company. So we know things change. So it's important to be able to think about that as well. But yeah, have a little read through, have a bit of a research into Armstrong's performance management cycle, because it's important. I'm not going to go into this in major detail about setting objectives, because we're going to be looking at the assessment and how to assess individuals for performance. So we'll be looking at that in more detail. And I know I've just talked about the link, but when you set objectives, timely ones at that, measurable ones that can be measured, thinking about that SMART acronym: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. You're continually looking for ways to move forward. And, that's what progression is. That's what performance management is about. It's about pushing and stretching and challenging individuals to be the best that they can be. I always like to provide you with a slide that has got absolutely loads of words in, so I do apologise for that. But, pause this video if you like, have a look at this slide. It is a really, 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 really good slide, as it points out how to think of specific, measurable, achievable, or actionable, realistic or relevant, or both, or time-bound objectives. So thinking about things like, what is measurable? Well, it's about identifying how to measure success. Would that be identified by completing a unit? Would that be identified by completing 6 months in coaching or shadowing or mentoring? Would that be completed by a certificate at the end of a course? And think about that. But you can look at this slide and you can focus on what each of these sections really, really mean. So pause this if you need to and have a look over it. Michael E. Douglas, the management professional, not the actor, actually set up a format to help with writing out objectives, and that was an action. It was the word to, or just an action verb, with the key results, a date, and cost if applicable as well. So I've provided you with some examples here. So to reduce telephone expenses by 15% within the first half of the fiscal year. So that might be, a really good smart objective that you've got as a leader. And then you might set your team a task, for example, to start using Zoom more than using the telephone. Start, using maybe WhatsApp with internal staff or teams, for example, and that might be a way to minimize so that you're going to be looking at specific tasks that link into that objective, that then might link in to the overall goal of minimizing costs or expenses within this specific department, for example. Now, there are a number of performance management tools, and I'm not going to touch on these too much, because there's going to the third one in this series is going to focus specifically on the tools and techniques that can allow for a really good stringent performance management system. The only thing that I'd like to say is using a couple of these in conjunction can really help with to have a really good performance management system. In one of the places that I worked, we used to manage each individual with a monthly performance review. And in that performance review, we'd set key performance indicators for each individual that was specific to them as well. And then we'd outline what needs to be done every year in a performance and in a personal development plan. And we also used reward and recognition. So we used 4 of the ones that are pointed out here. But using them in conjunction with each other is good practice as well. And remember that having people involved directly in their own development will allow them to be committed to achieving what they've set out to do as well. So giving them a buy-in, so communicating to them the part that they play in achieving the organisation's goal, but also allowing them to make their own choices in relation to performance management is extremely important. And there's some questions here that you can ask yourself, or ask your employee as well, or ask your staff member or the person you're leading, but also think about what skills or what skills do they have, or what do they need, what processes could maybe be streamlined to become more lean or minimize waste, what products could you be maybe designing or utilizing, what are we ready to do now that we weren't ready to do last year. And that could be something like, now we're using Zoom, what else can we use it for? It might be that you have more client appointments via Zoom, and that might save costs, which may increase revenue. Thinking about has the employee suggested any programs or process changes? Letting them have their say and thinking of it innovatively as well is also really important. So, this has only been an introduction, and we are going to go into, the points that we've made in a little bit more detail. But in my opinion, the main aim of performance management is to communicate the shared vision of the organisation's vision and purpose, their values and their goals to the staff. If people know what they're working towards, they're more than likely going to work with you to achieve it. In these, in the performance management process and in the systems or within the tools and techniques that you're using, you define expectations of what people should be doing and how they're going to be delivering them. And you're also going to be improving their motivation and engagement by giving them that full transparency of what they're doing and how they're going to get there. You're going to be allowing people and giving people the opportunity to understand what high performance actually looks like, and giving them the tools and the resources that they need to get there. You're going to be giving them the opportunity to take ownership and responsibility for their own performance. You'll be able to allow them to have input in the formulation of their objectives as well. Once you've got somebody setting their own objectives within their personal development plan, and once you know that they can think for themselves and think outside the box, what's to stop you then asking them for more advice? Say if your CEO or senior management team give you a goal, and you're breaking that goal into objectives for each individual. They might be wanting to set their own objectives. They might be making it more specific and measurable. They might tell you, well, that's not realistic for me because I've got X, Y, and Z to do. So the realistic time frame for me might be, and then, you can discuss that. It's basically opening a really good channel for communication as well. And, all in all, it can achieve greater efficiency, effectiveness, cohesiveness, and transparency, and more of a positive, motivated workforce as well. So that concludes our introduction to performance management. I hope this has been useful. But if you want to learn a little bit more and delve a little bit deeper into performance management, stay with me for the next session, which will be about analysing the need for development. Okay, thanks for watching today. My name's Ashley, and goodbye.